Big jobs in this country, the raising of livestock and the production of meat. If you workers who dress them, tailors who sell the meat, and all the others who play a part in the picture, it keeps more people busy than any other industry in the U.S. Raised western range, veal from 10,000 dairy farms, lamb from the high pastures of cow and the feeds of the prairie states, pork from farms everywhere in the country. All these must be brought to central points, slaughtered and dressed, and the meat then distributed over the whole nation. Because the big livestock growing areas must be far from the great average of 1,000 miles before it reaches customers' dinner table. To handle the livestock, to produce the meat, and to distribute it to those dinner tables takes kinds of organization. This picture is a story of those people and their methods and the organizations which make their work possible. As the nation has become more and more conscious of the importance of nutrition and health, the choice of foods has become more and more a matter of careful study and selection. Meat, the most satisfying of all foods, has taken its place as one of the great protective foods of all sources of proteins, minerals, and vitamins in the B group. And in countless retail shops, the housewife applies her new knowledge as she provides her family with the nourishment it needs for good health. Almost all the meat we eat is one form or another of beef, pork, lamb, or veal. Each one has a story, but just to make it simpler, let's take beef and see what it takes to transform a steer on the range into meat ready for a retail market 1,000 miles or more away. The feeder market to be sold to a farmer who will take it to his feeder farm and fatten it on grain until it is ready to go to the stockyards and be sold to the meat plant. Here it will be dressed and chilled, ready for distribution. Throughout our West, from Texas to the far Northwest, are huge areas of land poorly suited for other uses, but ideal for grazing livestock. So the bulk of our meat animals are grown in these regions, far from city, town, or railroad. As each grazing season ends, the cattle are rounded up so that those which are ready for market may be cut out from the herds and started on their long trail to the railroad. And so, in the care of experienced hands to see that they are fed and watered and rested at intervals, they are brought to one of the great feeder markets. Located in cities like St. Paul or Kansas City, these markets are transfer points where the cattle may be sorted and classified before going to the feedlots. Each rancher's cattle are kept separate from all others, generally being consigned to a commission man who will act in the rancher's behalf and arrange for the sale of them either to cattle feeders that he knows wants the particular kind of animals he has on hand, or to dealers who will regroup and classify them to suit the needs of other feeders. Some take them with horns, some want them without, some want them heavy, others want them light. Still others give consideration to age or sex, or to the amount of time it will take to get them ready for slaughter. But eventually buyers are found for them all, and they're started off on one more leg of their long journey to market. Located throughout the rich grain-raising lands of the Midwest are feeder farms or feedlots. Cattle and lambs, too, are brought here by the feeder farmer to be given a carefully balanced ration of grains and minerals and protein feeds. It is here that they acquire the quality and finish that will make top-grade meat and bring the farmer top prices for his animals. The cattle and the lambs that pass through these feedlots and the hogs that are raised throughout the Corn Belt contribute much to the economic welfare of the U.S. farmer, for more than half his total cash income comes from the handling of livestock, and more than 85% of all the corn raised finds its market in the feeding of meat animals. To help the farmer sell his livestock advantageously, to supply him with complete up-to-the-minute information on market conditions and prices, the U.S. Department of Agriculture sends out market reports by mail and radio. Thus, every farmer has access to every bit of information which may help him in making his all-important decision, the decision to sell his livestock. This time, the marketplace is the stockyard. Here they are sold, usually through commission men, to the packers. Of course, there are variations from the usual methods of marketing livestock. Ranchers and farmers sometimes sell lambs direct to feeder farms without the intermediate feeder market step. And it is often true that cattle and lambs come fat off the range and go directly to the meat plant without passing through a feedlot. As to hogs, they usually make only one trip to market, coming fat from the farm. The farmer may have a commission man handle them for him in the stockyard, or he may sell direct from his farm to the plant, always choosing the method which he thinks will bring him the most cash. Veal calves are largely a product of America's thousands of dairy farms. They also may be sent to the stockyards for sale to the meat plants. The Chicago Stockyards is a city within a city. The world's largest livestock hotel, it is a square mile devoted to livestock and meat preparation. It operates as a clearinghouse for all the transactions which take place between farmer, commission man, and packer. Here are located the meat plants which draw their raw materials from the endless thousands of pens. And here is a whole population steeped in the tradition of the yard, grown up with it, having its own mannerisms, its own customs, and rich with its own local color. Truck after truck and train after train pour their livestock into the yards every day. As the trains arrive, they are announced in the bulletin office, together with the name of the commission man or house which is to handle the animals. It is here that they gather to check up on the arrival of their livestock and find at what platform or dock their cars will be unloaded. While the cattle are in the pens assigned to the commission men, they must eat as usual, even as you and I, and their wants are taken care of by the stockyard's hay wagons as they constantly make their rounds. Then once more, buyer and seller meet, as they did in the feeder market. This time the buyers represent meat companies, while the feeder farmer is represented by a commission man, whose sole interest is in getting the highest price for his client's cattle. In the Chicago market alone, there are available buyers representing 300 to 400 meat plants. In the whole U.S., there are more than 1,400 plants which bid on livestock. Now, while it is true that all these concerned buy livestock or sell meat in every city, it is also true that none of them can operate without coming into close competition with numerous competitors. When the commission man is satisfied that he's getting the highest possible price for a particular lot of cattle, the deal is made and the cattle are on the move once more. This time they are headed for the stockyard scales to be weighed. In the scale house, the weighmaster keeps accurate records and operates the large but delicate balances, which are frequently inspected by the Department of Agriculture. The weight of the cattle is stamped automatically on the weight ticket. And when they come off the scale, they are the property of the meat company and are on their way to the plant itself, soon to become meat and its many byproducts. And now at last our steers have nearly fulfilled their destiny. In the spotless cleanliness of the beef dressing floor, the sides move slowly along on their overhead trolleys past the trimming and inspection stations. One of the most important jobs in the meat plant is the constant inspection of all animals and meat, both by plant experts and by the highly trained men of the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Bureau of Animal Industry. After each side of beef is carefully scrubbed with a high-pressure hot water spray and wrapped in a protective cloth, it is taken to a chill room or cooler. Here, the temperature is kept just above freezing. It takes about 36 hours to chill the beef thoroughly and bring the meat to the temperature which will best preserve its freshness and flavor. From this point on, until the meat is sold over the counter, the temperature is never allowed to rise more than a few degrees. After 24 hours in the cooler, the claws are removed, and the government seal of approval is placed where it will appear on the rib, round, and other primal cuts. Lambs get the same treatment as beef, except that they are left whole and not separated into sides. Veal is handled somewhat differently. To protect the color and quality of this delicate meat, the hides are left on until just before shipment. Then the protective cloth is applied. On the pork line, the clean scrubbed hogs must also pass the critical eye of the U.S. Department of Agriculture inspector before the government seal can be applied. And again, a stamp is placed on each of the important cuts into which the pork will be divided. In the case of pork, the meat plant does the job of dividing and preparing the meat before shipped. Here's the beginning of the pork cutting line. First, the hams are removed, one man sawing through the bone while another makes the cut. After another saw takes off the shank at the joint, the hams are graded according to weight and quality. Some will be shipped as fresh hams, others will be cured, and then smoked in scientifically controlled ovens. It takes some 40 or 50 hours in hardwood smoke to bring out the best possible color and flavor. Believe it or not, this specialist is a ham smeller. If there's anything short of perfection in the interior of any of these hams, his nose will find out about it. Going back to the production line again, a cutting wheel divides the side and shoulder as an expert feeds the pork to the knife. The shoulder falls one way and the side the other, dropping onto a cutting table. Here, a single expert cut with a U-shaped knife removes the loin, which is tossed to another table. The remaining side goes under a roller, forming it into a flat piece for easy handling. Meanwhile, the loin is trimmed and graded. Each piece will be individually wrapped for market. On another table, the spare ribs are cut from the flattened side piece. What's left is bacon, fatbacks, and trimmings. The side goes to a trimmer who cuts away the excess fat, leaving a neat rectangular piece for bacon. An inspector weighs the bacon sides, looks them over carefully, and grades each one according to standards. Bacon sides are smoked over hardwood fires just the same as the hams, after curing for several weeks in a carefully blended mixture of salt, sugar, and other ingredients. Once again, the bacon slabs are squared and flattened, this time by means of a forming machine. Then they are fed to the slicing machine. Sliced bacon is wrapped in various size packages to meet consumer requirements. Girls do the wrapping right on the scale platform. A conveyor takes the packages to other girls who put them into boxes for shipment. To satisfy the huge American appetite for sausage, a sizable portion of the total pork output is ground up, seasoned, and made into familiar links. Then again, much of it is blended with beef and other meats, seasoned by experts who know American taste down to the last pinch, and made into all kinds of fancy sausages and a whole family of table-ready meats. And in demonstration kitchens everywhere, home economics instructors devise new ways to make attractive use of the resulting delicacies. We couldn't leave this department without at least a mention of the great American hot dog, or Frankfurt, made, packed, and shipped by the million to satisfy a million hungry American stomachs. The fatbacks and trimmings used to make lard receive the same meticulous inspection as every other food product in the plant, then go into great rendering kettles, finally coming out of the filling machines into packages for shipment to retailers. But the meat industry is by no means limited to edible products. The bones this man is grading will appear later in the form of buttons, knife handles, and many other useful articles. The wool that comes into the plants on millions of lambs is taken off the hides by wool pullers after treatment to loosen the fibers. The lamb skins, too, are carefully processed and graded for sale to the tanners. Cattle hides are stacked with layers of salt in between to prevent spoilage while curing. Later, they will go to the tanning plants, and eventually, of course, will find a useful life as shoes or leather belting or perhaps harness. The meat packer's genius for making useful articles from materials once thought useless has always played an extremely important part in the economics of the industry. Livestock byproducts find their way into an almost unbelievable number of useful and valuable things, all of which reflects itself in the form of higher prices paid to the producer for his livestock. It is not unusual for the returns from the byproducts to more than pay the expense of buying, driving, and slaughtering the stock, and refrigerating, loading, shipping, and selling the meat. This margin over the amount needed for expenses is added to the income from meat and the total used to purchase livestock. And so from the open ranges, from rolling meadows, from thousands upon thousands of farms and feedlots, livestock comes to the meat plants to be prepared for consuming markets. But there remains the problem of getting it out of the meat plant to the millions of consumers. Broadly speaking, there are two ways in which meat is distributed from the plant. Retailers in smaller cities and towns are served by car routes and receive their supplies direct from the plant by refrigerator car or truck. Large consuming areas generally get their meat through branch houses, which receive large rail shipments from the plant and then sell to the retail dealers. The orders that flow into the plants from salesmen, retailers, and branch house managers all over the nation are swiftly typed on the forms which will set the machinery of distribution in motion. Shot by pneumatic tube direct to the departments involved, they result quickly in the wanted meat and supplies being landed on the car route loading platform, to be loaded into the trucks which will deliver it direct to retailers in smaller towns and villages, strung out along car routes extending perhaps as much as 700 or 800 miles from the plant. The nationwide distribution of meat through branch houses is handled much differently. This group of experts at the loading table has the unique and difficult job of matching the available meat supply at scattered packing plants to the demand from even more scattered branch houses, and assigning refrigerator cars to make the needed shipments without lost motion or waste. Teletype wires bring them information on the meat available at each plant, as well as the orders from the meat company's branch houses. These they must fit together in such a way as to make full use of all the meat on hand at the plants and supply all the needs of all the branch house areas. Their job is made more complicated by the little known but very important fact that consumers in different localities have very different tastes. Chicago, for instance, wants its beef to come from cattle that weigh 750 to 850 pounds, while Boston wants it from cattle weighing 1,300 to 1,500 pounds. Hindquarters of beef for Philadelphia must be cut like this so that they will have no ribs, but Boston markets insist on having no less than 3, so the cut must be made here. It's the same way with pork, with lamb, and with veal. Each big city or section of the country has its own set of demands which must be met, and these men know them all. If pork is headed for Los Angeles, it should be from lean hogs weighing between 180 and 220 pounds. But if it is to go to Baltimore, it should be from hogs weighing as little as 140 pounds. The bringing together of these two systems of marketing, branch house and car route, creates a distribution system of great economy and flexibility. Consumers in every part of the country can get exactly the type of product they want, and the prices received by the producer for his livestock are not affected by gluts of these foods, which would otherwise occur in a few large consuming areas, but are rather determined by a matching of supply and demand all over the United States. When the men at the loading table have finished with their work and the day's supply and demand is translated into shipping orders, the teletype goes into action again. And in some distant plant, men begin the work of loading an allotted refrigerator car with meat for some equally distant branch house. Even in the loading of the cars, the efficiency that is an indispensable part of any packing plant is evident. After all the meat that can be hung from the ceiling is in place, dairy, poultry, and other products are stacked on the floor beneath until the car is loaded to capacity. This is typical of the economies which permit the packer to get along with a fraction of a cent a pound profit and still pay well for livestock and charge reasonably for the meat and other products. Beside the car route and branch house, there is another important channel of meat distribution. The Army and Navy and other armed forces centralize their buying, generally dealing directly with the packer. So it is not uncommon to see uniformed officers inspecting the specially selected and prepared meats which are shipped in huge quantities everywhere there are soldiers and sailors. Between half and two-thirds of the total packing plant output reaches the public through branch houses. The branch house is as specialized and efficient an organization as is the meat plant itself. It is geared for quantity and speed. The meat, as well as the dairy and poultry products that roll into the branch house by the carload, must find a market and find it soon, for the product is a perishable one. One of the jobs of the branch house is to break down the beef quarters, lambs, hogs, and veal into cuts that the retail butcher can use. These are the short loins, from which come the most popular steaks. And here's a local retailer on a shopping expedition. Often buying in person, retail dealers are good traders. They shop around for the best. They are fussy about the quality of meat they buy for their customers, and they bargain vigorously over the price, for there are no price tags on the meat at the branch house any more than there are on the cattle in the stockyard. In the end, the salesman takes what the highest bidding retailers are willing to pay. Here, the price of meat is affected by the same supply and demand which operate when the producer offers his livestock for sale. But not all dealers can shop in person. To serve these, there are outside salesmen who go from store to store, selling not only meats, but poultry, butter, eggs, and cheese. This practice of using the same facilities for handling and shipping many products is one of the reasons why the meat industry has reached such a high level of efficiency and economy in marketing and distribution. The meat business moves fast. It has to, for if the meat fails to reach the consumer fresh and attractive, it will certainly fail to command a price sufficient to earn the small margin of profit the meat company must have to operate and to pay the producer of livestock well enough to induce him to continue raising top-quality animals. It is the perishable quality of meat which sets the pace for the whole industry. From the hand who round up the cattle to the retailer who sells a steak, every task of the industry's million workers is geared to move the meat quickly, efficiently, and continuously over its average travel of 1,000 miles. Because the United States is a country of vast distances, large meat concerns are needed to do the job of bringing producers of livestock and consumers of meat together. When the housewife goes to her local dealer for a steak, a ham, or a leg, wants waiting and knows that fresh and good. The meat industry is big enough and far-reaching enough to see that America's meat is the finest, and that every housewife in every city, town, and village in the nation can buy what she wants whenever she wants it.